our parents told us if you lay down with dogs, you're likely to get fleas. And I think Kevin McCarthy laid down with dogs a little too often, and he got those fleas that our parents and grandparents told us about. And today he was ousted. 100 years in our 100-year history we've never seen a speaker ousted in the way that we saw today. And I can't help but have the visual of McCarthy after January 6th standing at the podium, rightfully saying Donald Trump was responsible. And then weeks later, the photo of him grinning it up with Trump at Mar-a-Lago, pretty much welcoming Trump back into the party after everyone had ousted him for the January 6th insurrection. And now, Trump, who was asked today, should Kevin be ousted, walked away, wouldn't even answer the question. Didn't call Matt Gaetz or Marjorie Taylor Greene and tell them to chill out, let it go, keep the man in office. What does this tell us about Kevin McCarthy and Donald Trump?
Yeah, Areva, crazy times. You mentioned January, the insurrection, and then now what just happened today. And, we've talked before. I'm a former congressional staffer. And these two moments I never imagined would happen in U.S. history. And so it's baffling and concerning. So I think there are two phrases I think of. I think the first one is chickens come home to roost. And then secondly, when it comes to I've been on your show talk about the difference between democracy and power. And I think about the line, why do fools fall in love? And in this case, why do fools fall in love with the idea of power and not democracy? And so Kevin McCarthy is essentially a victim of his own foolishness. And so we've had the first time in U.S. history, we have the speakership, so to speak, recalled, the speaker recalled and now vacated, even though we have a pro tem. And so it's a troubling time for democracy in the United States. I think also when you describe, obviously former President Trump is in New York City, and the fact that he walked away is consistent with everything else he does. He's focused on himself. And when you are no longer of any use for him, he will walk away, which he literally did today. But I think, Areva, once again, obviously, there are a lot of memes floating around and reminding McCarthy of some of the comments he made previously, particularly on Sunday, to anger Democrats. But I think more than anything, this is a troubling sign for America. Yeah,
Dr. Walker, Michael Cohen, who's an ousted person outside of Trump's inner circle, he literally, love him or hate him, he told the country, this guy cares about no one but himself. And he said today, these MAGA fools, he called them fools. Like, what did you expect, Kevin McCarthy? When Kevin did not shut the government down, when he voted to do the right thing for the American people, for veterans, for mothers who depend on SNAP benefits, for government workers that need their checks to pay their bills, Donald Trump was through with him. So do you think Kevin McCarthy or any of these men and women that continue to pledge their loyalty to Donald Trump, are they learning anything from these lessons?
Yeah, I don't think they learned anything at all, to be honest with you. I mean, it's like history repeating itself. It reminds me, some of these movies, sci-fi movies, where you keep going back in time and you keep trying to change, you keep kind of rectify the same mistake you make over again, but the situation gets even worse and it mushrooms. So they haven't learned their lesson. And listen, it was also the idea that, quote, power concedes nothing without a demand. And I'm using that quote particularly as it relates to Democrats, because they have to, considering all the chaos, and I tweeted this earlier, that, this chaos in the people's house, that now there's an opportunity for Democrats to show the American people that they are the adults in the room, so to speak, figuratively speaking, and that they're willing to take the mantle of leadership when we vote in November of next year. But once again, these people are foolish and they keep making the same mistakes. It's also, Areva, highlighted, this is why the Republican Party has struggled, because they don't know how to govern. When you talk about the executive, talking about the White House in terms of when Trump was president, or we've seen here now in just, a year or so as it relates to this former Speaker's house, running the Speaker of the House.
Yeah, what are you thinking, Dr. Hill? Jump in, just on a visceral level. What does, how are you feeling today?
I mean, I don't think I'm feeling anything. I'm thinking a lot. And what I'm thinking is Kevin McCarthy came in unprecedented 13 times, 13
15,
tries.
15.
Thank you, Areva, for correcting me. Thank you.
15.
Let's get it right. It was 15 times, unprecedented number. And it's unprecedented that a junior member would unseat the House Speaker.
Yes.
This is unprecedented times, but it's also, speaking to Brother Walker's point, the chaos of the Republican Party, right? Where in their party this is happening because of it's overridden by ideology and not by like just basic common sense. You should keep the government open so that you can do your job. Like, that's it. There's no other like basic thing. So it's not, so Kevin McCarthy is just doing a basic thing, not an honorable thing, a basic thing. And that doesn't survive the current Republican Party because of its chaos.
Yeah, they didn't want to keep the government open. Donald Trump didn't, because he wanted to defund the Department of Justice so that he could end his personal indictments and litigation against him. One man shut the country down of 300 plus million people to satisfy the personal desires of one man. That's where we are, is that you have a party that is willing to sacrifice the entire country. And you had a speaker, a historian said today that speakers are respected and feared. Tip O'Neill, and named some of the best speakers we've had in the House, and then compared them to Kevin McCarthy, neither respected and definitely not feared, because as you said, Dr. Hill, a junior member and junior members challenging a speaker. We've never seen that. So, Dr. Walker, what does this tell us about the future of speakers? Are speakers no longer, the most respected and feared leader in the House?
Well, I can certainly tell you if in the next speaker after the next election, it's like Congressman Jeffries, I can assure you he wouldn't have faced the same issues that former Speaker McCarthy dealt with. And Areva, one of the mistakes he made, and you talked about the 15 times they had to vote, finally, he wins the speakership, is that they continued to chip away at the rules. So it was the threshold to recall a speaker was easy. So when he was initially finally won the speakership in January, won the vote, he really doomed himself because the threshold was so low. And as my colleague said, my dear colleague mentioned, a junior member of Congress being able to help recall a Speaker of the House. We've never seen anything in this in U.S. history. But Kevin McCarthy is his own fault. He continued to allow him to chip away based on the rules, and this is where he is today. He's embarrassed. And this is going to be certainly a case study for students in undergraduate and graduate programs throughout the country.
Yes, you're right. In order to get the vote on that 15th time, he made so many concessions. He basically gave away everything, including the protection of his own office, and trying to appease these MAGA Republicans, not realizing that they are not pleasable. They're insatiable. No matter how much you give them, they want more, more, and more.